Welcome to Voices Amped. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ellie Clark.
And I'm Vanessa Becker-Weig, and we are your hosts. Voices Amped is a place for us to share space and lift the voices of artists, activists, community leaders, and organizers, all of whom have inspired us and our work.
For any ampers who aren't familiar with our work, we are Voices Amplified, formerly known as the Girl Project. You can learn more about our arts advocacy work or support us by going to voicesamplified.net.
If you want to put a face to a name, watch our interviews on YouTube by searching and subscribing to Voices Amplified.
Thanks for listening, and remember, be curious, be courageous,
take up space, and make some noise.
This week, we would like to thank the Seeds for Success donors at $40 or more annually. That is Emily France, Rena Childers, Leslie Scott, Lauren Hill, Dylan Baker, Jennifer Parr, Carmen Keels, and Lexi McCourt. Thank you.
Thank you. This week on Voices Amped, we talk to the one and only Jen Joplin. Jen Joplin is an artist out of Ohio, and we talk about her upcoming one-woman show, The Prime of Miss Jen Joplin, premiering June 4th at the 2021 Cincy Fringe Festival, her 30-year career as an artist, the church she bought to transform into a creative community right before a pandemic hit the world, and how she navigates being an artist, a mother, and a wife, and has now written her third one-woman show. You can buy tickets to the Prime of Miss Jen Joplin at cincyfringe.com. That's CINCYFRINGE.com, or call 513-300-5669. The Cincy Fringe Festival runs June 4th through June 19th. Enjoy our interview with Jen Joplin. Welcome and thanks for listening. This is Voices Amped. I'm Ellie Clark.
And I'm Vanessa Becker-Weig, and we are your hosts.
So our guest today is Jen Joplin. Mrs. Jennifer
Hello,
Joplin.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to embarrassingly read your bio, and you have to sit and listen and bask in the glory of your bio for our guests. So our guest today, Jen Joplin, has had a 30-year career as a professional actor, voiceover artist, writer, director, coach, and teacher. Wow. New York, Chicago, St. Louis, Cleveland, and for the last decade, the Cincinnati region have provided her with the space to create both art and family. How do you make the time? She is a graduate of Wright State's Professional Actor Training Program, where she is frequently an adjunct professor. Some of her favorite productions are The Feast and The Man Beast at No Theater, The Humans, Outside Mullinger, and Rapture Blister Burn at Ensemble Theater Cincinnati, Macbeth and Antony and Cleopatra at Cincinnati Shakespeare, and God of Carnage, Proof, and Angels in America at the Human Race Theater, and Mrs. Hubbard in Murder on the Orient Express at Indiana Repertory Theater, or IRT. Dang. So Wright State, which we will ask you about, was the first to put your writing skills to the test. And now Jen has produced 3 one-woman shows, including this season's Cincinnati Fringe Festival world premiere of her show, The Prime of Miss Jen Joplin. And I can't say most interestingly, but most wild, Jen bought a church right before the COVID lockdown with her husband, Jason, and their son, Max, which has proven to be a great playing space for 3 virtual theater productions thus far. And her hopes for the church are to turn her sanctuary and event space into a place for artists and community to celebrate and create together in the years to come, once we are all vaccinated or whatever you do. Geez, so many questions about all that, but a church. Can we just start with a church?
Oh my God. Yeah. So my dear friend Becca Moix and I, we are life partners outside of marriage, platonic forever buddies. We have always been looking for a space that answers all of our whims. It's a place to create. It's a place where we can work. It's a place where people can gather. And she found this church, and we all thought, we're never going to get another chance like this again. It's got a stage of its own, like in the event space, and catering sized kitchen. And my husband is a wonderful photographer. And so it's a place where not only is he taking the photos, but you could get married there. Your photographer is already there, just all of this wild stuff, right? And it just sounded like, oh my God, this is how we put everything we've been doing in our lives together in one place. And then the pandemic hit, and we were like, oh no, we can't do theater. We can't do events. We can't do weddings. So we are just now starting to look around this beautiful space and see it as the endless possibilities that we first saw it as, because for over a year now, we're like, oh no, what did we do? Because you don't just buy a church to live in a church, you've got to have some sort of plan. So
Yeah, and that's a good note for our listeners.
We're excited to dive back in.
Yeah, they didn't just buy the church as an event space. They're living in the church as well.
Yeah. The three of us, my brother and my sister-in-law, and actually during this last school year, we had my nephew Benny join us as well, because I homeschooled my 13-year-old son, and we figured if you're homeschooling one 13-year-old boy, why not do two? I don't know. What will I think of next?
It's so exciting. I think it's very inspirational, and I can't imagine the fear of a pandemic hitting right after you purchase a church.
Yeah. But I had a space where I could ask the heavens repeatedly, what do you expect of me now?
You had the sanctuary.
Indeed.
So you are developing currently the prime of Miss Jen Joplin for the Cincinnati Fringe Festival. When does that happen?
We are actually uploading it right now for the Fringe Festival to go ahead and get it in their lineup, their primary lineup. And opening night is June 4th. And they are doing an amazing hybrid this year of live productions in spaces where people can be socially distant still, and also live stream productions. Where it is live theater, you're just not there in the room, you're watching it on the screen. And then what I decided to go with is video on demand. So mine is one of the many offerings that you can just buy a ticket and decide when you're going to the theater to see my show. So
smart. And you are talking about, we'll talk about this show a little bit further, but you say 3 one-woman shows. What are these other shows that you've developed, and how did this one come about?
Yeah. The very first one, and I know we'll talk more about Right State. Woohoo, Raiders. And that was the very first one. And that was a show about Alzheimer's, because that's something actually that my family has had to deal with. And some of the best advice I ever got on writing in general is write what you know, write a story that you feel hasn't been told. And so I started with that show called Blank, about a spouse dealing with the aftermath of having to say goodbye to somebody that they lost to Alzheimer's. So, a nice comedy, nice lighthearted comedy.
Was that one your senior thesis show? Was that the one you did for your one-person show at school? Thought so.
Yeah. With Lisa Roth and Laura Wilson were my OPS partners. We all went together, and that was to this day a great joy. Velociraptors forever. They'll get that. And then 2 years ago, I did The MILF Also Rises, which is a spoof on The Sun Also Rises. That's classic, just like what I'm sure all of my shows will be. But strangely enough, it came out of a dare. Someone else I knew was having a difficult time and fearful that maybe their career was kind of going down the tubes a bit. And I was like, well, then write your own stuff. I know you can do it. I was like, in fact, I dare you. Let's both get something ready for Cincy Fringe. Come on, let's do it. And I don't think that I would have gotten back into that arena of putting myself front and center, telling my own story, if I hadn't dared someone else to do it as well. And I'm so glad I did. It was exactly what I needed to do at that time in my life, because I was dealing with a lot of things that a woman in her 40s is dealing with, and trying to balance my insecurities from childhood and teenage years and early 20s into finding my power, and realizing that those things don't always mix very well together. And you're going to have to set some things free if you are able to move forward in your own personal growth. So it was very political, but it was also very personal as well. And then this one just came out of the fact that the pandemic found me in a blue collar world suddenly, because no theater. I went from overly employed to zero employment like overnight. And I just dealt with a great deal of additional loss, realizing that the space I was working in lacked humanity and lacked empathy and lacked human connection. And so for an artist to suddenly go from your whole life is about connection to just feeling like you can't even be seen. I started making up songs at 3:00 in the morning while I was working this job, and then realized, you know what, I think I've got a show here.
And it's twofold, right? Because you had the disconnect from the pandemic, and which launched you into this job, which then had a further disconnect of leadership, perhaps?
Yeah, and just really, boy, this experience made me value past moments in my career where I have dealt with, whether it's directors or artistic directors or colleagues, the idea that we all will do a better job. We will create what we are capable of creating if we work together, as opposed to it's fine, whatever, and just clock in, clock out, and the least, people bringing the least to their expectations every day, as opposed to bringing your best. And that's, I just can't live with that it kills my soul. So yeah, it was just very interesting to see how a very successful company has decided that it's okay to not find that support for their workers and within their day-to-day activities.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you started singing these songs to bring yourself joy, which I love, and which you can hear if you get the Prime of Miss Jen Joplin on demand through the Cincinnati Fringe. But it leads me into the question of what is the journey of writing a one-person show for you? Sure, I'm sure the songs like launched you into the possibilities and ideas, but then I feel like so many people have ideas and they're like, I don't know how to put pen to paper and make it happen. So what is your in when you're starting to put the idea on paper and develop?
I kind of, there's this traditional idea of writing down ideas on napkins, back of receipts and stuff. I kind of do that in the back of my mind, and then I will have these moments where I will call them my musings, and I just throw it all up and type it all out, and it doesn't have any real order to it. or any formatting or editing. It's just letting those thoughts build and build and build, the idea of filling the creative well, so that you can dip into that well and see what's going to work and what's not going to work. With this process, I literally was recording these songs on my phone, on my 20-minute breaks during shifts, because I knew by the time I got home, I would have forgotten this song, no amount of singing it over to yourself over and over again. Working at 3 o'clock in the morning, you forget your own name, by the time you get home. It's just humans aren't supposed to do that.
Mhm.
So I would record these songs, and then I would get home and I would sing them for my husband. I'd be like, okay, Jason, I've got another song from today. And poor guy, he had not even had his first cup of coffee. And here I am singing these wild songs about, working in a warehouse. But when I finally knew it was time to put the pieces together, I find that it's really helpful for me to literally have my character, me, tell you what this show is or is not, almost like laying the groundwork. MILF Also Rises started with me telling you exactly what you are in for, so that I almost gave myself a roadmap, of where to go next with this tale. And with this one, I start with what this is not. And then go from there. And then the songs themselves really helped me follow the track of what was important for the audience to know about the experience I just had.
Mm.
Is it mostly music, or is there a lot of dialogue in between, or a lot of monologue?
There's a lot of dialogue in between. Yeah. And one of the things that I really touch on, I'm almost 50 years old. I've got a kid. I'm an actor. I've had long commutes. I talk to myself like a pro, so it only makes sense that I would be writing one-woman shows. I do them all the time, whether I mean to or not. But I say in the show that this time of wearing masks was actually a strange gift for someone who talks to herself, because I had whole conversations at work, I'd be talking to people the whole time. They didn't know I was talking to them, but I was having a ball, So it's a lot of the dialogue in between songs. It's really kind of that I was making to myself under my breath at work all the time.
This really makes me want to see it. I can't wait.
I make no bones about it that I may have lost my mind on this job. I'm slowly trying to reclaim it, but
If
it's
it's
a
on
weird time.
demand, like, are you filming it in your sanctuary, in your space, in as though it's a recorded theatrical performance, or is it more intimate like film TV?
So it is, we used the sanctuary space and we tried to recreate it as closely as possible to kind of a factory floor, So it looks like I am at work. And I am wearing exactly what I would have been wearing at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the whole 9 yards. And I basically am on a shift while I'm talking to you, the audience, or you, my own brain, or I don't, it's like, who was I ever talking to? Who was I singing this for? So it's a little bit for everyone, and it's a lot bit for me. This whole tale that I tell while I'm on a complete shift, even though the show itself is 60 minutes. It has the sense of beginning of the shift to the end of the shift.
Mm.
Even with that sense of, oh my God, how much longer, which was a huge part of a 5-hour shift from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m.
It's like the show 24. That's so exciting.
Yes, totally. It's my own 24. Very few murders, which is good, that nobody dies.
So I know, we've shared a little bit with our education in Wright State's professional actor training program, that, you know, obviously the one person show and that writing component, I would say I have not taken quite to that, but you certainly have. And what other gifts, or what were some of the greatest strengths of the training from Wright State that you take with you?
Um, I think overall, it was such a well-rounded, when you and I were there, there was not a delineation, and I understand why they've made this change, but there was not a delineation between acting majors and musical theater majors.
Yeah.
And so I found myself constantly out of my comfort zone. If I even had one between the ages of 18 to 21, I don't think I did have a comfort zone. Everything was uncomfortable at that point, but I was forced to sing, even though I never considered myself a singer, especially once I heard some of these voices that were my peers around me, you know. And it did force me to do things like stage combat, even though I don't consider myself some amazing physical actor, you know. Um, it forced me to write for the one-person show requirement for our senior thesis. But I think one of the things that I took away was the connection between acting and energy. That is something that I have only expanded on in these 30 decades since then. And it started with the idea of Laban, with the amazing Bruce Cromer. And just the idea that you can change your energy. It has a weight, it has a pace to it, it has an intent to it. And you can lighten it up, or you can make it heavy and indirect and very direct, and, you know, fast, slow. But again, I ran with something that really rang true to me. I've used that in acting, especially to make quick, bold choices, to just pick a Laban energy and run with it. But I've also realized that it's not just a physical tool. I have since then applied the idea of different energies to singing, speaking, but also the sense of an emotional energy. So much of what you do on stage has to do with connection, and you can feel someone lightly loving you from across this, you know, from across the stage, as opposed to intently wanting you dead without any movement or words. You know, you've got to be able to feel the difference in that energy in a live theater standpoint. And so I really appreciate that Wright State always connected energy and action for me. And that's as important as a person as it is for an artist, a theater artist, for sure.
Well, it's so fascinating because, and Ellie will attest to this, that I mean, my teaching style is 100% exactly what you're talking about. And it's so fascinating to me that that was the biggest, for both of us, the biggest takeaway. Thank you, Bruce Cromer and Mark Olson.
And Mark Olson, absolutely, absolutely.
And while Vanessa, you say, you know, writing a one person show is not something you did, I think what brought us together is developing material through movement, which is in itself devising work, creating work. So I would argue that you do, maybe not putting the words there, but you're like, let me put the movement behind it. Yeah, absolutely. And I think they're both so unique. And I know Jenna Hoban came from Wright State. I mean, Wright State is producing these people who write one woman shows or one person shows. I'm like, who is this school? Let's send people there. Wright State. Yes.
Yeah.
So a 30-year career in the arts is clearly nothing to scoff at. And it amazes me. I think it's informative. And I don't want to put words before I ask you the essential question. Have you really made a living from the arts? But I think it's such a good example that you don't have to be in Manhattan. You don't have to be in Los Angeles to financially navigate life in the arts. So I wonder, you know, reading your bio, looking at your body of work, knowing that you have a family, what how have you navigated life as an artist, and how have you sustained as an artist without the burnout of these jobs that are required to pay the bills while being a full-time artist, managing both and not burning out and managing to have a family and continue the work? Easy question, I know.
Right. Yeah. And so the answer is yes. No. um, the answer is genuinely, and it's taken years to understand this, but not only is my definition of success different than someone else's, but my definition of success has had to adapt to what life throws my way. And it can be very hard when you have to have that day job to sustain the life you've chosen in addition to the career you've chosen. Um, you you find it's like Jenga, or Tetris. Tetris is one of my favorite things. It's in the show too. But you have to find where things fit together so that they feed each other, as opposed to taking away from each other. And you also have to forgive yourself and whatever point you are in your career, if you still need that day job, or if this year was a little lean, creatively. You have to forgive the rest of the world when they make assumptions, given some of the choices you have to make along the way. I had somebody years ago, this is easily like almost a decade ago now. My son's 13, so he was very young, and I was a young mom. And a much younger actress, she said, "Oh my God, I just think it's so brave that you gave up acting for, to have a kid." And I thought, I didn't give up acting. Like, I'm piecing it back together, man. Just because I'm not doing this solely as my income right now doesn't mean that I'm not a professional actor. It doesn't mean that this isn't my absolute passion. And I've had to continually forgive myself that I'm not somebody else's career. I won't be someone else's career. I've picked this region. I've picked also having a family. I've picked any number of things that mean my definition of success is going to be my definition of success. And that is a forever changing process, both the forgiveness and the defining.
Yeah, those moments in our lives. I don't know if you've had that, Vanessa, but I took on education director of a theater once, and I got interviewed by the local newspaper. And the question was, well, you're teaching actors to go out and pursue this thing, but you clearly didn't succeed at it. So how are you teaching these other people?
I remember that question. Oh my gosh. Yes.
And I was kind of like, well, I might punch you. Because, teaching art it was just it's one of those jaw-dropping moments where it's just one of those jaw-dropping moments. Have you had those, Vanessa? I know that Jen's kind of talking about this assumption about your life because you had a child or because you've chosen to teach.
Yes. I mean, I think the vast majority of my life has been, and I don't want to say explaining that, but just what you're talking about, Jen, just identifying, well, this is what I want. Like, these are the things that I personally want in my career. And I don't, I appreciate other people's choices and, but this is what, I want. And sometimes what I want changes. And sometimes I have to just adapt, but oh yes, Ellie, I've definitely experienced that, possibly from the same interviewer.
Hint, hint. Same circles. Fascinating. And it leads me to, I would claim that all artists to some degree are reflecting back on a society with some sort of question that is asking people to raise the bar, like what you're talking about, Jen, with don't set low expectations for going to work. And I'm not going to put the words in your mouth that you're an activist, but do you, when you're writing these pieces, use your art? How do you use your art to talk back to the world and make sure that they're asking the question? I mean, you literally said you're setting up at the beginning of the show. Here's what you are going to learn, or here's what I'm not doing today. So it's crystal clear. But do you feel like you're really using your art, particularly as you mature as an artist, to ask the questions that you think are essential as we move forward?
I don't even think it's asking questions anymore. Now I'm at the point, and this is almost like I've opened Pandora's box. I'm making demands, because as you get older, you realize what is important, what to make space for, and what is not important. And then when you see the world, um, eh, people who know better, especially, um, who could be making a difference, not taking that role, not taking the reins, not taking that leadership role, not helping to make this world a place where we are all heard, all welcome, all healthy, all, you know, there's just no excuse anymore. We're connected. I mean, look what we're doing right now. We're not physically near each other, and yet we are having this beautiful opportunity of connection. We can do this globally. We can do this across the board now. And so when people do not bring a sense of humanity and reaching as high as you can on behalf of humanity, I've just lost it. I cannot abide it anymore. So I do think, the second one woman show, The MILF Also Rises, I had protest signs as my backdrop. As the show progressed, I would bring out another protest sign because I had been actively marching since 2016, and I continue to this day to march locally whenever I can. Whenever it bubbles up to a point where I can't take it anymore and I need to yell outside with other people yelling the same thing.
Yes.
But it is definitely a response to feeling like voices are not being heard. And certain people in this life journey that we're having are not being seen, and their problems are not being addressed. And that can be to, sometimes on a very basic level. It's still the fact that all three of us would not get paid in theory as much as three gentlemen doing a podcast. That's just, what year is this? Stop. There's the very basic things that I feel like we've gone too far as a species, as a civilization, to allow these things to continue. And then there are some very glaring atrocities that you're like, are you human that you can allow this to continue? Oh yeah, I'm definitely bringing some demands, no longer questions, some demands at this point.
Yeah. Good. Good. So with those demands or with your writing, you don't have to share your deepest fear, but I will say, if you have a fear or if you are willing to share your fear, how do you address that or confront that in your work when you are challenging yourself as an artist?
Oh, that is good. Do you mean my fear societally, or my fear,
Well,
you
I
know?
think I think I am getting at more of the thematic chord, like
Mhm,
the work that calls to you for you to address this thing that you can't ignore inside of you. And how do you bring
mhm.
yourself to putting yourself up against it or inviting it in over and over?
Um, my fear is that and this answers it, both on a personal level and a societal level. 25 years ago, I didn't think my voice was worth fighting for. My story was worth telling. My dreams were worth chasing after. Um, and I think it's very easy for humans in general to feel like, but who am I? why do I have why am I special? That I should be a part of the very best that we're capable of. And I hold myself to that, and I constantly fear that I'm letting myself down, that I am not living up to everything that I'm capable of. And I know society's not, and I don't want us to be an insecure late teens Jen Joplin as a society. I want us to be an almost 50-year-old Jen Joplin as a society, admitting I've made mistakes, admitting I've got a long way to go, admitting that we still have insecurities, but we're going to push past them. And it's okay if we're not perfect right this very second. It is the whole idea of continuing to move forward and to do it from a place of empathy and from a place of we are in this together. That's what makes it worth it. We're not going to solve it all. Certainly not in my lifetime. But we've got to be able to see that progress that we are making, both personally and as a civilization, for sure. So that would be my fear, is that we stop because it's hard, or we're scared, or we're not perfect yet. We won't be. That can't stop us.
Yeah. Or that we think, well, we're too old, or I should have been here already, so I might as well give up now, when you're only at the halfway point. Or yeah, it's pretty
I'm
amazing.
going for 106, so I'm not even.
You got a little ways.
Yeah.
I think I heard the other day that in the future we're going to be living to 115. I was like, do I want to live that much longer?
I don't know. No, 106 is good for me.
So part of your work as an artist has been teaching at Wright State. You're an adjunct professor there sometimes. Do you teach other places as well?
I got to teach at Miami University a couple of years ago as well, with arts engagement. And so that was not teaching acting. It was teaching non-acting majors how important the arts are in driving other messages forward, which I think is long overdue. Tell it, don't sell it. That's what the corporate world has zoomed in on finally, is that you better tell us a good story if you want to sell us what it is you've got. And I think that the arts, we've always understood the importance of telling a good story. If you want that moral to get across, if you want people to walk away with a certain feeling or a certain discussion that they're having afterwards, it's all about telling the story. I think that that's worth teaching inside art classes and outside art classes in a very big way. But yeah, I got to teach at Wright State this fall. I taught Zoom acting. It wasn't supposed to be teaching Zoom acting, but we were all in lockdown. And so it was a sophomore acting class, and the 10. Hi, the 10.
Chaplin. Shout out
yes,
to Chaplin.
Yes, Chap. But it really actually blew my mind how powerful the connection and the work was that we did.
Yes.
And it was because we all need connection. We will find it one way or another. And I think that these 10 students, I'm hoping that this experience of having to find connection in such a disconnected way, once they hit the stage again with each other with masks off and full body and full intimacy of all kinds, oh man, nothing is going to stop these students, because they had to try and do this with the brakes on the whole time. And once they get to put their feet, their foot on the accelerator, they are just going to like zoom out of here, no pun intended. But it was fascinating to try and do this kind of work in this format. And it did my heart a great deal of good playing with them, because I was in the middle of a great deal of heartbreak, having lost artistic opportunities to the pandemic. They really kind of saved my art life in a way. They brought me back a great deal of hope. So I'll be forever grateful for that experience.
And I would say that while I'm not convinced or may never be that Zoom theater is a viable alternative to being in real time and space together, I w- eh, I do love the fact that artists have forged ahead to say we will keep creating, and I will second that with no faith. Well, I had some faith because I was desperate, but with very little faith that acting would actually work on Zoom, I think I've been more floored and more creative in seeing the successes and the opportunity for accessibility that's happened because of Zoom rather than the opposite, right? People collaborating from all over that we couldn't afford in the arts, but we have a Zoom room. It's fascinating.
Yeah, adaptation is the name of the game, and it always has been for artists, and that that previously really came from a place of being underfunded, being not getting the support in many ways that sometimes you need to move forward in your art. And this was a great lesson in nothing is going to stop us from creating. We will find a way. Some of those things might come forward with us as we get to come back into the theaters. I think we've got a much better appreciation for multimedia
Mm.
and the fact that we can find this connection, even if it's not live right in front of each other. But man, I miss the shared breath of a live audience. And that was a very heartbreaking thing. The fact that the very thing that makes live theater so exciting, that we're sharing breath, we're sharing this energy, and that was what was so dangerous in those moments of the pandemic, was we literally could not share our breath with each other. This has been an incredible lesson. I can't wait for about 10 years from now when we can look back and really have a broader sense of the lessons learned. That should be exciting too.
And I think it's really interesting what it's done for our young artists, a huge focus. I think we're all in a similar age group, the three of us, close enough. A huge part of our education was, will you be able to make money? Will you be able to sustain? If you can do anything else, do it. And I feel like what I'm seeing with Voices Amplified, the students you're talking about, like use art to put a message out there, push a message forward, and theaters using monetization as an excuse. Like, I can't say that because I'll lose my sponsors, or I can't say Black Lives Matter because some of our audience is conservative, or I can't make these standards in my studio because I'll lose money, rather than this is the purpose of art, and this is our responsibility. It's just really interesting. And I think this younger generation is going to be much more hyper attenuated to that because of this experience.
Absolutely. And that is a gift, I believe. We got some gifts out of these last, 12 to 15 months, however long this has been. But that's one of them, is that the old guard, as it were, has been forced to catch up with the younger generation and how they are finding ways to connect and to get their messages forward. We had to go to night school real quick and pick up on some of these tactics, and what an eye opener, it doesn't have to be how it always was. Come on, there are no limits if you acknowledge there are no limits. Truly. And there will always be hoops that we have to jump through, but I think that this has really opened up a lot of possibilities for the arts across the board. But yeah, this next generation, do it. Do whatever it is. And if I may really quick touch back on something we were talking about, because the monetization, the idea that, my career is not my career if I'm not making it, all my money from this. All those things tie into something that I've really come to appreciate, which is, Vanessa, you and I both, we have a lot of classmates that they're not on Broadway. They're not even choosing to do this as a career anymore. But what they learned from spending this much time with exploring the arts and exploring what it means to be human and what it means to connect with other humans, they have carried this forward into different careers, which have made them at the top of their now chosen careers. And they are literally healing people. They are changing corporations from the inside out. You know, they are doing things with the exact same lessons you and I got about energy and ritual and knowing how to read a room and tell a story and, you know, things along those lines. Even if you choose to step away from the original art that you were pursuing, that art does not leave you. You bring that into everything you do in your future. And I think that that's really important to give credit to that kind of training and how it creates successful humans and successful lives, even outside what they thought they were going to do originally. That's not a loss. It's a win if you hold on to these lessons, you know?
Absolutely.
And I've been working a bit with the students recently, just really kind of honing in on that, because I've noticed with a lot of late high school or early college students and being around my son and his friends, just when the pandemic hit, it was just like they're all these theater people, deer in the headlights. What are we going to do? We've got to change everything. We're not going to be able to survive. We've got to change course. And so I've been talking a lot about, okay, artists are resilient and the corporate world is going to need artists to move forward.
Yeah.
So how can you take this that you love and what can you use it for and how can you use it? And, just instilling in them how important it is, no matter what they end up doing.
Yeah, I think that is huge. I joke about this, but I'm also not joking that the kind of training we received, it taught me how to be a person. And because you're trying to pretend to be another person, you have to understand what it means to be a person, to put yourself in someone else's shoes, and to play that role. And while it seems very simplistic to say, I learned how to be a person, you do go through your life and you meet people out in the world without that kind of training, and they literally were never trained how to be a person. They were not given the skills of just how simple it can be to turn the energy around in a moment, whether it's a sales moment or a personal family moment. They weren't given those tools. And that's where the coaching comes in. Corporate coaching, I love going into companies and it blows their minds sometimes. The very simple things that it's freshman year acting stuff, but it is understanding the importance of connection. That's it. It's a lot of fun to see people see the value in that, and to bring it back to their own lives and succeed using those tools, those amazing, fun acting tools,
Yeah, and we've we've been into banks, just invited into like, oh, we're sponsoring you. Will you just come in and play a few games with our employees? And the level of self-consciousness and inability to play in
Yes.
corporate America, it just shows that we have not put enough focus on the power of imagination and pivoting. And I think that's what you're all talking about, right? Like artists know how to go into a space and pivot and be creative and think imaginatively, but we underestimate the power of those things. And it's so sad to go in and be like, our high schoolers play this game with stakes like this is the end of the world. And corporate America's hesitant to even play. They're like, oh, you want me to do what? And you're like, play, just play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Problem solving is what we do in the arts, again, that, that need to be adaptive to your situation.
Right.
But problem solving, the word problem, that's a sticking point, it doesn't mean that this doesn't have to be a bad solution process. Let's play our way through finding a solution to this problem, and we will all come out better for it on the end and not hate each other.
Yeah, and it's totally our job in acting, right? We're looking for the problem because we know that's the opportunity.
Right.
We
Oh,
on
absolutely.
stage, we're like, "Ooh, I
Absolutely.
love the problem," because that's when I get to like move into action. It's so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great way to put it. I love it.
Yeah, and Anne Bogart definitely has a quote that I've carried with me. Your growth as an artist is not separate from your growth as a human being, and knowing that you can't separate the two. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think that that's where people, artists, can get into trouble a lot. You need to make sure that your personal role and your personal show, that is getting the rehearsal time and the attention and the applause that it deserves.
Mm,
Everything that happens off stage has the opportunity to fuel what you bring on stage, and vice versa. And if they are at odds, both will suffer.
yes. So, how have you navigated self-care? I mean, I guess your show did that, but how have you the pandemic was obviously difficult and you're in a huge church and you're going back to blue collar work and um how did you navigate? How did you take care of yourself? Was it the writing of the show? What did you do for your family personally?
Oh, family. Thank God for family, truly. Thank God for family. Thank God for very near and dear friends. That was my saving grace. I now have some weekly things. I've got weekly calls with a group of women in my life, because we needed to and we frequently told each other this. We're like, I don't even want to talk today, because what am I going to say? Everything still sucks. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. I hate all of, but just talking and connecting, that was my saving grace. My son, my husband, my nephew, um, getting a chance um, to work with them at a 7th grade level, that was really freaking hard. And shout out to every teacher in the whole wide world. You're amazing. I do not want to suggest for a second that I did this well, but we had a lot of fun with it, and I relearned some lessons from some 7th grade lessons that I was like, whoa, man, like I forgot like how cool physics and geometry, and like it's not just math, it's like how the world works. And I had a ball kind of relearning some things in this downtime. That was a saving grace. Cooking, creating on new levels, creating together as a family, that was a saving grace. But I will be 100% honest that it was hard to care for myself, um, because this has been a very scary time, a very scary time. And while self-care is extremely important, I know that if I don't know how to give it, if I don't know how to turn it on myself and give that love, I do know how to give it to others. And that is one of the things that, so one of the other coaching things that I do is I do bystander training. Um, and I've done it for grade school through corporate. And one of the things that I impress upon people is the importance of help, for humans. It has been proven that our brains send out, all of these good feels when we help someone. We feel good when we're able to help, when there's something we can do about a situation. And yet somehow or another, we've gotten in our heads that we should not ask for help and we shouldn't accept help, when that's the very thing that would make other people feel good. You know what I mean? And so when I have trouble giving myself the love that I need, it feels good to turn it around and give it to someone else. And
Mm.
ultimately, I am giving myself what I need in that moment, because I got all the feels going on, because I'm helping. Um, but that's something I need to remind myself of a lot, is to ask for it when I need it, and to accept it when it's offered, because then I get that joy of seeing someone else's face go, oh, thank God, I know what to do for you now,
Yeah.
because you've seen that look on people's faces. They're like, what do you need? How can I help? And if you shut them down, they're like, okay, they feel worse, So we got to make that a good cyclical opportunity for people. Holler when you need the help, give it willingly, accept it with joy in your heart, and everybody feels better.
I love that.
Yeah. But we won't do it. It's like, it's ingrained in us not to do that, but we can change that, among other things.
Mm. So Vanessa shared with me that your dad is an artist.
Oh, yes. I like to say that my family is full of it. We are indeed full of it. My brother is also a professional actor, talented as all get out. He gives me a cameo in my show, actually, which is he needs his own one-person show sometime soon here. I'll get writing that very soon. But my dad has been a professional actor his entire life. Since the day I was born, that was how he provided for our family, was just acting, which gave me a really bad sense of how easily this was going to go. But he's an incredible regional actor, live stage actor, but he has done TV and movies and voiceovers, and back in the day, industrials were a thing. So instead of live coaching or things along those lines, you'd have a professional actor telling you just how to use this product at work, talking you through training. And he was great at that, put 2 kids through college doing that.
Wow.
But he is 83, 82, 83. And the only thing that is keeping him from the stage is this stupid pandemic. He cannot wait to get back on the stage. And he is an absolute inspiration. My mom she was a music major. She taught music for a gazillion years at a Catholic school, K through 8, or I don't know, every age kid in the possible she was teaching. It was, we call her Saint Janie, because she has been she's the glue that keeps our family together. And if my brother or my father or myself need to get a song ready to go for an audition, she sits down at the piano and plays it and makes sure we're ready. And she makes sure that our flies are zipped and we've eaten something, and, all those good things that if your head is in the clouds, as artists sometimes tend to be, she's the one who brings us back down and makes sure that we're not going to mess it up in some really easy way. She's amazing. But yeah, we've all been doing this together for years.
You gonna pass it on to your son?
He has a great appreciation for what we all do. I don't think that he is headed in the artistic career direction, but he was very lucky to go to the Cincinnati School for Creative and Performing Arts. So he got his early education. He was K through 6, getting that art as part of the curriculum. And I will forever be thankful for that, because it will inform the rest of his life. But I think he's much more technology based. And I'm like, rock out, man, because somebody's got to help us retire. Otherwise, we're in trouble. He's like, I'm going to be a YouTuber. I was like, go for it, babe. That sounds sweet. I will show you a couple of mansions mommy's interested in. That's great. Yeah.
What is your superpower?
Right now, it seems to be honesty. I mean, genuinely, it has, one more time, we'll back it up. Realizing that I can push past that fear of being judged, even by myself, push past that and say my piece and say what I'm feeling and say what I believe. And it has been pleasantly surprising to realize that when I push past that fear, it is almost always met with appreciation and has inspired others to push past that fear as well. So yeah, honesty right now is my superpower. And I'm sure my husband's going to hear this and he's going to be like, oh, dear God, you mean we're going to be more honest? There are some things I can ease up with honesty wise, but no, I think that's where it is right now is, yep, being who I be and being honest about it.
Yeah.
That's a great superpower.
It is. I want to,
And I want to clarify again, that does not mean I think I am perfect. I am not. And again, that is why I think that on a personal level, but also this country needs to learn that lesson too. You can admit you're not perfect and be really powerful and still be moving in the right direction. That is not a shortcoming to admit I'm not done growing. I'm not done learning. I've got some work I need to do. And I really want this country to join me on that level of honesty.
Yes.
Shamar Kwachi said, we're not inviting the nuance that two truths can exist at the same time. And until we can accept that two things can be true at once, we're not going to get anywhere. I still think about her saying that. Yeah.
Here. I agree.
So what's the greatest piece of advice you've ever been given, or something that's resonating with you right now if you can't remember all 53 years of advice or 50
right.
years of advice, however old you are?
I'm 48. I'll be 49 in August.
You're not, you said you're in your 50s.
No, almost 50s.
Oh, okay.
Close.
But proudly almost 50. So I don't bat an eye at anywhere in there. I'm ready. Let's do this. One of my favorite things my dad ever told me, and he was told by someone else who he greatly respected in the theater, was when opportunity knocks, don't answer the door naked. Which means do your work, do your work, be ready. And you don't know who's knocking, you don't know what's going to go on, but you better have been doing your work up to this point so that you don't go, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not dressed yet. No, be ready, answer that door, grab your purse and off with you.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah, that's something that resonates with me more and more, because we really don't know what comes next in this world from day to day, clearly, with everything that has gone on. And, if somebody says, let's do a virtual show in your church, you've got to be ready to go. Yeah, let's do a virtual show in my church. Yeah, that's not what I was counting on, but yes, let's do this. You've got to answer that door and go for it. Not naked. Yes.
Unless you look really good naked. No. Okay. So I'm excited to get
pandemic. Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, right. Because you said you were going to set up a licking station in your church, didn't you? Like once the pandemic was over?
Yes, there will be hugging and licking, and you don't have to do both. You can feel, whichever one you feel more comfortable with. But once we're all vaccinated, as far as I know, I'm going to open my church as a church. And at the end of every sermon, you can get in the hugging line or the licking line. It's whatever you feel comfortable with.
Choose your own adventure. Okay.
Right, indeed.
Since we really brought you here, to make sure people knew about this new one-woman show of yours that is going to be available very soon, June 4th. I want to move us into the Campfire, which most of our listeners know is our moment for our guests to share inspiration or something they're working on. It represents to us storytelling in an intimate setting that is unique to the people who are present and listening. And in our activism work, we refer to this as the closed container or circling. That's where a lot of our creating happens. So what are you sharing today?
Well, I wanted to share um, something that I've come across recently, and this has everything to do with my show and everything to do with the art that I create on a personal basis. I just came across the fact that scientists, medical doctors, people with bigger degrees than me agree that empathy is hard work. And I don't know why that it made me exhale. You know, I thought, oh my God, finally, we're all admitting that being empathetic is not easy. You don't just flip on a switch and go, well, I'm just going to be empathetic now. Um, some people find it a little easier than others, but it is a genuine choice that we have to make as people and as artists. And it is not just emotionally hard work, but it genuinely taxes your brain to make that choice to be empathetic as opposed to not being empathetic. And that really just, I felt like that was great validation for a lot of the messages that I feel are most important in this world, artistically and personally. We are not looking at the rest of the world going, come on, get with it. This is so easy. Just feel more, connect. This is hard work. And I think what's really important is that you've got to recognize once you learn that it means you'll need to rest. And that is from an artistic and an activism standpoint. If you are going to make these connections and if you are going to put yourself in other people's shoes, so to speak, you have to find that ability to give yourself some self-care and to step back when that work gets too heavy, when you need a break from this very hard work of allowing empathy to be how you move through this world. And I really, why that stands out to me now is it explains to me why I was taking it so personally during this new job I found myself in, where I was not getting that empathy back. I kept trying to put it out there. I kept trying to be empathetic in my new surrounding, and it is work. And if you don't get it back, that can be absolutely soul crushing, not to mention exhausting. And so hearing that, I was like, no wonder, no wonder I was truly exhausted by this job, and it really hurt my heart at a certain level. It makes a lot more sense now that I have been given that validation that empathy is hard work. It really is. It's still the right choice, and it still makes for the best art. It still makes for the best collaboration outside of the arts. And it certainly makes for the best opportunity to change things for the better moving forward, individually, again, as a civilization, all those good things. Yeah. So is now where I get to sing and give you little teasers for my show?
Yes, now we have a multiple campfire sharing now that we've got such a good lesson. And yeah, we would love to hear some from your show.
Yeah, I'll preface this again with the fact that there was a time in my life where I was like, oh, you'll never sing again. Please don't ever sing again. There are so many other people who do this better than you. And a shout out to my beautiful son, because it was having a baby in my world that changed that for me. And he was when I started writing my own songs. And that's my bonus track that I will sing for you. But I will sing you just a little bit from the big like anthem of my show, The Prime of Miss Jen Joplin. Okay, let me make sure I've got the lyrics in my head. Now I'm singing my bonus track in my head. Oh my God, I'm forgetting my own song.
We can edit this, so take your time. We can just cut this out in post.
Okay, great. Here we go. Um, We all have something only we can deliver, something only we can give. It'll get there much faster if we do it together. With love, we need free shipping to live. When it comes to love, we need free shipping to live.
Yes.
And when you see the show poster, that will make that song so much funnier.
Yep.
People
I
will be
don't
like,
know
why
who
are
I'm
Ellie and
talking
Vanessa
about.
laughing at that?
Yeah, but so my bonus track is from when my son was very little, and driving him in the car, I didn't want an absolute slew of curse words to come out of my mouth when another driver had done something horrible. And so instead, I made up songs that would calm me down, but I could still make my point. And he didn't learn, the F-bomb any earlier than he did already. And so I would sing, it's called manners, common everyday civility, like thank you and you're welcome, saying please if you want something and sorry if you F it up. And I would sing that anytime somebody made me want to blow my top, because I wanted to stay cool for my son.
Oh my God, that's funny.
You can turn anything in your world into a song, and I promise it will make you feel better.
For Avenue Q.
Oh man.
Yes.
Well, Jen, I am going to wrap us up with a little rapid response interview
Yay.
questions.
Okay.
And if you feel like you're in the room with James Lipton, I hope you're ready.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. What is your guilty pleasure?
Oh, gardenscapes. It's on my phone. I get to match things. It's so tangibly satisfying compared to everything else in the world.
What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck. Yeah, it's just.
It has such a nice
perfect.
ring to it.
It's perfect.
If you could try another profession, what would it be?
Something with just nature. I would love to say something along the lines of archaeology that combines humanity and nature. Like you get to go and like dig it up and be like, oh, whoa, what is this? This is amazing. Yes. Something along those lines.
Your attitude to the world in one word.
Hope.
God or no God?
Yes.
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 I love that.
All of the above. Yeah.
Yes.
What would you once said about you after you are gone?
That I brought a smile to people's daily lives, truly. That I made people smile. That would make me very happy.
Lovely. All right, this is the last one. It's so important, this last one. Choose one: rom-com, documentary, action, or thriller.
Action.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, see, you didn't offer Pixar. I would have gone Pixar every time.
We need to add that.
Yeah, we should add Pixar, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Well, Jen, thank you so much for having this inspiring conversation with us. It's been fantastic, and I cannot wait. It's June 4th, right? June 4th. Yes, Cincy Fringe.
Yes, June 4th. And Cincy Fringe, go check it out. There is a huge lineup, live, online, everything. Please, there's a gazillion really inspiring things going on.
And the title of the show is The Prime of Miss Jen Joplin, the Cincinnati Fringe Festival, June 4th, on demand in the sanctuary. And do you have like an Instagram tag or anything that you want to give us where people can follow you? No,
I need to do all of that. You're going to inspire me to finally do that. No, seriously, just go check out Fringe and see what is available there. And right back at you, ladies. Thank you so much. This is inspiring what you guys are doing, and it gives me great joy that you want my voice to be a part of the change that you guys are making. Thank you.
Oh, you're phenomenal. This is so exciting. I can't wait to see your show.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. Thank you, listeners and our guest, for sharing the space with us. If you don't want to miss our next episode and you'd like to follow our work, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at Voices Amped. Voices Amped is part of our arts activism initiative, Voices Amplified. Our team is me, Jenny Benavides, Vanessa Becker-Weig, Ellie Clark, Dr. Margaret McGladry, and our intern and editor, Kennedy Johnson. If you have any questions that you'd like to hear from future guests, or if you ever have questions for us, hit us up on social media or email us on our website, voicesamplified.net. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, you can watch all of our interviews on YouTube if you search and subscribe to Voices Amplified. We'd like to thank Lauren Rourke for our podcast art, Tiffany DuPont Novak for our logo design, and Vanessa Davis for her beautiful underscore, I'm Doing Okay. You can follow her music at Songwriter Vanessa. We'll see you next time, everyone.